Good evening.
Hi.
How are you?
All right.
John, take a seat.
All right, John, we're ready.
Snow some
You
more
ready?
tonight.
Okay, I'm gonna open the planning commission meeting. It's Tuesday, February the 24th, and it's about 6 o'clock. So, anybody want to give me a approval of the agenda or any additions or deletions?
Move to approve the agenda as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone have a conflict of interest that they want to share with us? Okay, hearing none. We do have a time slot for general public comment, but later on, we're going to open the meeting so we can actually have a dialogue to talk about development. So if you have anything that's real critical that you feel you don't want to wait for, step up to the podium and talk about it. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Okay, hearing no, we'll move on. Thank you. Minutes of the February meeting.
One correction.
Yep.
My name is misspelled.
Where?
A roll call.
Okay, great.
That
got
seems
it.
to be an ongoing problem, Miles.
I know.
And I know you don't do the minutes normally, so
Yep, I got it. Thank you, sorry.
that's okay, that happens. Anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes as corrected, or,
I'll move that.
okay, is there a second? Support. Thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Miles, do we have any communications you want to share with us?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, in that case, we will open the meeting.
Well,
Oh, no, wait a
yeah,
minute.
there's like a couple of things.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Yeah, I'm sorry. We want to review the economic development that we got from the consultants. Miles has some slides he's going to share with us, and
I don't know why that's so stretched out. I'll go quickly. The planning commission members, saw a lot of this, at our last meeting. The slide presentation was 63 slides long, which is too long, in my opinion. I included the ones that only are related to economic development, just to give maybe people that didn't catch this, some background on what the planning commission is currently reviewing and how that relates to economic development. Probably the only slide that I'm gonna mention real quick as it relates to today's conversation around land use in the built environment that might be, consequential is there was this question about, in the comp plan survey about what development do people in Bath wanna see, what do they not wanna see. The ones that stood out to me was retail had a pretty high, we'd like to see more. Restaurants had a pretty high, we'd like to see more, I mean, mixed use as well. The only one that really stood out to me is like, we don't wanna see more of is hotels and motels, so very much not on the hotels and motels in Bath Township, apparently according to the survey. Other than that, it was included in the packet, there's a lot of good information in here, but I think a lot of it would be what people assume when they think of kind of what people would like to see in Bath Township. I don't know why
Miles,
somebody's-
can we make that available to anybody in the audience that would like a copy of it
Yeah,
later date?
yeah, and it's included in the packet, which I see most people
Oh,
have.
did most people get a packet? Okay.
Yeah, we print out extra.
Thank you. Okay. Well, the next thing, I think, is the definitions of economic development as perceived by the commissioners. Is that not correct?
Yeah, so I'll just, we talked about how to structure this meeting, and just to build some context, I think the large conversation that's gonna take place today is, what is economic development? What does that mean to Bath? What does that look like in Bath? I think that's what everyone here is about to engage in, just to kind of preface that conversation. We wanted to include a couple of definitions of how other organizations and, Merriam-Webster dictionary, define economic development. I think I'm not gonna read all these, but I think the large takeaway here that we are trying to present is, economic development can be defined in a lot of different ways, and it can look different, and I think that's why this body and our consultants we're working with wanted this meeting to happen and take place, cause we're trying to figure out what that actually looks like and means to Bath Township. And we can't do that in a vacuum. So if you're interested, those are a bunch of definitions.
Yep, and those are in the packet, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda that I put on was this, little graph that you got, or whatever you wanna call it. And I was looking for feedback from the planning commissioners, how they felt. So Mr. Severie, I asked him to lead off, and I'm gonna go right to left, and just right across the board here. So, Ray, you wanna lead us off with your thoughts?
Yeah, I think my first thought is, before we start talking about economic development, everybody's gotta get in their mind, what do they want Bath to be in 10 or 20 or 30 years? Because without knowing that, you don't know what kind of development we should be putting in.
Right.
So if you want us to be a residential community, that's one thing. If you want us to be general and have industrial development, that's something else, and then where does it go? So I think first thing I think is, what needs to change about the way Bath is right now, if anything? And how do we go about doing it? I guess, my thoughts is economic development should be something that would draw people to the township, whether they live here or not. What reason would people come here to live? And why would people come here if they didn't live here? And what do we want to have happen? If we want, like they talk about coffee shops and things like that, that'll be good for local people. I don't see people driving from out of town to go to a coffee shop. But if we want employment here, we need small offices probably. Strip mall I wouldn't be in favor of, but that's just me. Light industrial will bring taxes and employment. Data center, I think we've talked about that quite a lot and decided that's not what we need here. So, and I've heard a lot of comments from other people, we need a coffee shop someplace. Well, they don't seem to last very long here.
No, you don't seem to be supported.
No. And I think the
When was
other,
the last time we had a coffee shop?
what's that?
When was the last time we had a coffee shop?
They tried, what's that? I don't know.
Yeah.
They tried to put a restaurant in downtown, but they just could have served as why should I say downtown? We don't have a downtown.
No, not really. Okay,
So,
thank you.
I guess the big thing I think people need to think about is long-term.
Yep.
Don't think about what you want to have tomorrow. If we want this town to develop in a way that will be successful and sustaining, look at townships around, not just close by, but around. I'd like our township to look like that, whatever that might be. And how do we get there? Because if you look at some of the townships, and the ones I think of are down southeast Michigan, that really are, they're townships, but they're nicely designed townships. To get what they got, they started designing those townships 30 or 50 years ago, not today. So I think that's the big thing we gotta do is look
Thank you.
long term.
Mr. Almagy, you're next.
Elmo, who, what?
I'm sorry, I got a sore throat and a thick mouth, so.
I mean, for this question, I'm just gonna lean on what our citizens have been reporting survey after survey after survey, right? And it's always the same thing. They want restaurants, they want a grocery store, they want commercial, and they want it, in the report, they want it right here in this area. They wanna see, the historical Bath Village revitalized. And so I am fully in alignment with what our residents want.
All right,
To that point, we've got south of the highway and north of the highway that we are looking at. We have the grocery store, coffee, but it's on quite a ways away. And if we're going to redevelop the downtown, yeah, I think there's gonna be a strip mall, but do we look at it and have apartments above along with that? And again, 30 years is planning, infrastructure, making, if we wanna do the downtown area, we need water,
yep,
into the area, and how do we build the fund up to pay for that? But we also need a tax base,
yep,
and that means either we bring some businesses in that are gonna create the tax base, or we increase our housing.
yep.
But we need to create that tax base to keep moving forward. As all of you know, we've been tapping the fund for the last couple of years. How do we get ahead of that?
Well, there's a couple of ways, but
Yeah,
Tapping what fund?
The
Fund balance.
reason,
fund balance.
The fund
To
balance.
balance the budget.
well, I would like personally to see a destination here. We've got about 60,000 cars, vehicles go by the Webster Road interchange every day. How do you get those people to stop in Bath and shop? Because the locals tend to go down to the corridor along Saginaw, to the Myers, to the Monticello's, to shop and to do their, because they go that way. They go that way to work. It's kind of on their normal route and normal driving. And I think that the only way you're gonna really get that to change is if you've got a destination. And I look at something like Horrocks, and I hate to say Horrocks personally, because I'm not that impressed with how it's developed. But I think it's got a lot of merit in the fact that for a lot of people, it's a destination. And I would like to see something similar, but with local ownership and local support. And I think somehow we've got to get some of the people here that are developers and have some money to invest in some local businesses in the community. But I think if you don't have employees, you don't really have economic development. I don't see that warehouses and storage buildings constitute a lot of economic development. Other businesses that are successful create more other businesses that are successful and develop traffic flow. That's what makes a business succeed. That's my opinion.
Well, I would probably echo pretty much everything that you guys all said, but I think a lot of us also moved here to be kind of in a bedroom community and still have nearby conveniences. And I'm fine with that. I would like to see maybe the downtown be a little more walkable, you know, and maybe some smaller shops, coffee shops, better sidewalks, biking lanes, things like that, just to make it a little more desirable to walk around or to visit. But, you know, I think we have everything pretty close, and that's part of why I think a lot of people move out here, is you're still close to everything, but you're far enough away too.
Yeah, that's the point. Yep. Miles, I will ask you to fill in for George.
Yeah, he
I
called.
missed you, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, Kate. It's coming back to you. Don't,
Yeah, I'm
we're
sorry.
not skipping.
I'll get to you, Kate. I didn't mean to overlook you.
George Baker, who usually sit next to the chair, he's our vice chair. He called me just before the meeting. He can't make it. He's a longtime Bath Township resident. I think he's lived here his whole life. I hope I'm getting that
Yes,
right.
he is, yeah.
He just conveyed that he would like to see sustainable growth in Bath Township, so growth where growth makes sense to happen. He does appreciate the fact that there are abundant natural and agricultural land uses in the township, which he would like to see remain ag if possible and remain natural if possible. I think a third of our township is DNR property, so it's a kind of hidden gem that he appreciates in Bath Township. He did realize though the changing, he mentioned like kind of the changing weathers of the world, if you will, you know, this property used to be a cornfield south of the township offices, and now it's different developments have been proposed there in recent years, and he stated that he doesn't see that changing. He thinks that is the new reality for Bath Township, and he doesn't see a problem with that. He thinks we need to plan for that reality rather than have that reality, you know, kind of happen to Bath. So those were his thoughts in a nutshell. I hope I didn't misspeak, and I'm sure if I did, he'll let us all know.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty concise. Thank you. Kate?
I agree with, well, really everything that's been said here, and I think there's certainly a lot in common. And I also think that, to Ray's point, that smart growth is where we need to focus our planning. Bath Township will continue to grow. I don't think that there's anything that any of us can do to stop that. It will continue to grow, and how we manage that, and then how we plan for hopefully the additional revenue that comes along with that, I think is part of what we're trying to do here now. I would like to personally see some emphasis put on the old downtown area. I know that that's something that's a lot of people want, but not a lot of people have put forth the work and effort to try and make happen. Also, something innovative here next door, maybe not the industrial plant that was planned a couple years ago, but something, I agree, that draws people to Bath Township who are going by here every day. Something to bring them to this area. Maybe not a Horrocks, but something along those lines, I think, is what we should set our sights on. And then that sort of growth hopefully will lead to more things in the future. I don't know, it's an easy yet hard question, because we want all these things, but all these things cost money, and then to get the money, you maybe have to do some things that you don't want. So finding that balance, I think, is difficult, very difficult. And we're certainly never make everybody happy. But also, I think jumping at the first thing that comes along isn't maybe the smartest choice either, that we really need to be wise as how we plan. Because I hear on the Board of Trustees all the time, well, we're in this situation now because of the decisions made or the action taken or not taken by the boards a decade or 2 decades before, avoiding doing some of the difficult work. And I think that falls on us now, is to try and do some of that difficult work.
Thank you. Okay. So let's open the meeting so that we can have some dialogue here with the public. So need a motion to open the meeting?
Need a motion in a second.
Yeah,
I move we open the meeting.
thank you. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Meeting's open. Okay, the format will be, you can come up to the podium, tell us what your thoughts are about economic development. Anything to do with economic development is open. Where do you like it to be? What kind of development would you support? What do you think the community is willing to support? And how do we finance it? Is another issue, because if we've got to increase our sewer capacity, or we got to increase water, extend water, that's money on the plate for somebody. Where does it come from? So, go ahead, anybody, step up. We've got any funding that's available? That would be great, because there's the funding guy right now.
Well, there
Thank you,
is
Tim.
funding. We just got, 3.8 for the Maple Rapids Bridge. We've been working on that for 2.5 years. It's down to 20 tons. Pretty soon they're gonna close the bridge. Kids can't go to school in Fulton schools who live in Maple Rapids. Schlegel, Sand and Gravel, who's got a pit right up there on Forest Hill, can't go across it. Maple Rapids Lumber can't go across it, but we're working to figure it all out and get the funding. And I was at a meeting yesterday morning early, and they've pushed it to 2027. I was so hoping we could squeeze it into 2026, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. All right, that's Maple Rapids. This is Bath Township.
Right.
Well, first of all, thanks for this opportunity to, open this up and talk about this and being concerned about your neighborhoods. I mean, this is sweet to hear this kind of stuff. And I will say this, not because he's sitting in the room, because it's true. I may not say it, no matter if he was here or not. You have one of the best planners in the county. Miles is stellar. He's done a very good job. He's good. You guys are doing more than most you're doing most than any other township of the 16 in Clinton County, and it's impressive. So I appreciate that. I want to say that first. This morning I had breakfast with a real estate developer. He lives in Hazlet. And I said, what do you see in the region? you know, he's a mover and a shaker in our neighborhoods. And I said, which area is gonna grow? He said, Saginaw, M78. He said, that's the #1 area that's going to grow. So you guys are sitting in the hotbed here. So, and that's neat. I'm very happy to hear that, happy to see it, so. You guys know Courtney Wargo? She's putting in a coffee shop.
Trying,
over here. Yeah.
she's trying.
Well, she worked with Alex Crippen, we put them together. Alex owns 10 Cup Cafe and Creamery in the city of DeWitt. That's the best coffee shop, in my opinion, in the county. And Alex has worked with her, and it's gonna take her a little bit, it's money. And she's trying to get it kick-started. I just talked to one of our grant writers today who sent her some stuff and is trying to work with her. But bless her heart, she's doing a good job, and the Kesslers are working with her, that's neat. You know, it's neat to see what Doug Estruth did in the city. That's neat. You guys have seen the blue buildings over there. You know, they look good. That kind of brightens up the neighborhood. And, you know, Doug's working to get the store, or the restaurant across the street squared away. And I will say this, our Catalyst grant writers got a chunk of money for Doug for that property. They're working on other stuff, as you might know. He has, is it a 3-plex?
A
What's next to it?
4-plex.
4-plex he wants to put next to him?
Oh, next door it's a 2-plex to the 4-plex.
Yeah.
He wants to do a 4-plex,
Yeah.
but the health department.
Right, yeah. Anyway, so I agree with all your comments, and they're good. Housing is what you need. It is. The whole county needs housing, but, you know, you have to supplant housing with, other businesses, but you need housing. The whole county needs it, and, you know, it's just neat to see some of the housing projects you have to the south of here. You know, I know they're apartments, but, you know, you need housing. Board of Water and Light, we're working with them right now in DeWitt with Redwood Development, and, you know, there's lots of opportunity with the whole water sewer thing. There is, and I'm twisting arms. To me, that's government's responsibility. You know, government, stay in your lane, roads, schools, bridges, but Board of Water and Light, water and sewer for developers. If you look at the better communities across the Fruited Plain as well as in the state of Michigan, you will find, Fenton just did a big project, Hazlitt's doing a big project over here, and they're supplying the water and sewer for developers. That's what good communities do. And we're fighting that in Clinton County right now with a couple jurisdictions that, trying to get the water and sewer from, you know, begging legislators, which they all say they don't have any money. But, you know, it's amazing what they're willing to spend money on. So, and there is money out there. And Board of Water and Light is working with us, and I'm very grateful for that. So thanks for this opportunity. Way to go.
Thanks.
Karen Hildebrandt, as many of you know, I am the township superintendent. Our board, as Kate mentioned, is working on making some of those tough decisions that were kind of kicked down the road by many of the boards of the past, which includes how to fund some of these services that, of course, the people that move here are looking for, which includes good roads, sewer service, water service, police and fire, namely. So we're taking a hard look at those things and asking ourselves, how do we generate some more revenue for those things? And I think you'll see the board work on that for the upcoming months. Every year, the township, many of you may not know this, applies for clean water funds from the state of Michigan. Every year, we end up at the lower 20, probably the lowest 20 projects in the state for those funds. And we, most of the time, combine all of our projects here and try to look for, while we're not a low-income area, we do try to, you know, look at the median incomes for the area to try to make sure that we can qualify for some of those additional funds. We will continue to do that, and we will continue to apply for, you know, grants. We'll continue to try to apply for any type of funding that we qualify for in terms of, like when Norm Fasteners was coming, that came along with a really nice grant from the MEDC. So we'll keep looking for those opportunities, but Expanding the area is also competing with maintaining the system, and I think many of you know that. The system's been here for quite a long time and it needs maintenance. We're looking at quite a few big projects right now. And that's gonna fall on the backs of the ratepayers mostly when we
Yep.
try to take a look at that. So, while it's great to say we would love to fund it, we're also struggling to keep pace with maintaining what we have and making sure that it's in proper working order. We'll continue to do that. Had a really great conversation with the best planner in Clinton County today. He is sharp, and what he brings to the table is thinking outside the box, and I think he's right on in looking at how we can help people like Courtney. There's also a coffee shop called Mocha Noka on Chandler Road. I apologize.
Check it out.
I had an outburst, but I'm used to talking at these meetings, so it's weird when I'm in the audience.
That's fine.
So thank you. But we do need to find ways to help people like her. We're reviving the diner. And we need to see an investment of our people. And what I get frustrated by the most, when I look at Facebook, is the unwillingness to try something new in our area. People were against Norm Fasteners for various reasons. People are against storage. People are against diners and coffee shops and housing and almost anything that comes our way, people are against. And I think Miles and I talked about today, like, I don't think any of us wanna see a new person come in, invest their life savings in the diner and then watch them fail. So I hope that people will continue to support and figure out how they can support something like that, because I think that's the only way people are gonna make it. We can say we want restaurants, but then they turn over. I mean, that diner's been 5 different things since I
Yeah.
came here in 2012.
People have to go to the restaurant and spend their money.
Correct. So I think it's gonna take a village, no pun intended, but it's gonna take all of us supporting that. And I think there needs to be a recognition too that the Mr. Kesslers of the world, Dale Hosfords of the world, and any other developer that wants to come in here also has the right to do what they wanna do. And some of the projects that may not make sense for us as a township, if we're looking for jobs, maybe things like storage units are the thing that's gonna pencil the best for them. So I think when people say, oh, well, why isn't this this, or why isn't this that? Well, it's a little bit up to the person that owns the property too. So
Agreed,
I
yep.
do think until we can, bring them in and help them help us along, I think we're gonna continue to struggle. Because that property can be anything Mr. Kessler wants it to be if he sells it to the right person, so. And it may not be what we think should be there. So, yeah.
I was like, can I add some on the, that I
Please.
think is probably, you mentioned and it reminded me, and we also have Jonathan Archer in the room, who's from SCUMA, the very talented Jonathan
The
Archer.
very talented Jonathan Archer.
But one thing with like the infrastructure side, and we sit in these meetings and we just are going through this whole Chandler Road bid process.
Yeah.
There was a pre-bid meeting today actually with all the different construction firms who hopefully create a competitive bidding process, fingers crossed. But it's not just, the cost on the infrastructure side are actually insane.
They are.
Like,
They are.
inflation since 2020, and generally speaking, the basket of goods that the Fed uses to determine inflation, I mean, they're probably at like 35–40% since 2020, but sewer inflation is well beyond that. I mean, we're talking 200% increases.
Correct, almost to the point where when we got another 2.5 million from the state for the project, federal government for the project, almost $1 million for the township actually cost us more money. It was almost better to leave the money on the table than have to adhere to a lot of the guidelines that come with that money. So, I think that's a lot of the frustration that we have too, is that money comes with guidelines and strings attached,
Yep.
which makes it very difficult to sometimes move, Buy American for a pipe that I need.
That's only made in China.
It's only made in China,
Yeah.
adds, I think it was like 20% to the project. I hate things like that, but that's the reality of what I'm dealing with, when I'm managing these projects, so. So we're gonna continue to work, and all of our partners are advocating on our behalf and trying to figure these things out with us, so we'll continue to do that work, until the money flows a little bit easier, so. Just my thoughts, Miles is a great planner, we hope to have him as long as we can have him. He does have some good ideas for thinking outside the box in terms of, can we work with people on permit prices? Can we, just pull different levers, for people that live in the area, that are investing in our community, to give them a leg up. It may not always result in less dollars for us, but I think it can be an investment back into them. So I'm excited to see as this process unfolds, so some of those ideas come to light and what both the planning commission and the board of trustees might think of those ideas. So I'm excited for the future, hesitant obviously too, but I think we can commit to helping people if they want to invest here, be successful. So with that, I'm all set. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight, and not just from the audience.
Well, just out of curiosity, you probably read the board better than we do because you interact with them more. Are they
A little bit more.
Are they receptive to using public funding to enhance development?
I think.
And if so, what kind of development?
I think that Mark probably had, was pretty close on the fact that we've been using our funds to just keep ourselves afloat for the last couple of years. And so until we solve that, I don't think you're gonna see a willingness to float developers, especially investments in infrastructure. And we get requests for even pilot programs, payment in lieu of taxes. You're gonna see a resistance to that because the dollars don't always make sense for us. For the board, when we have to provide all the services to keep it afloat. So, I think it's gonna be an interesting, consideration and some decision-making. They're not gonna be feel-good, easy decisions if you have to say no to an investment because, the funding, the funds won't be there in tax revenue. So I think it's gonna be interesting.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely, that's the purpose of the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, because if I remember correctly, back in 21, didn't we have like an 83% fund balance?
We still have a healthy fund balance, but if we keep spending it in terms of supporting police and fire, different items that are taking more time, roads, more times and resources, I don't think you're gonna be able to hang on to that healthy fund balance.
Were those funds, the COVID relief funds that were spent for much of that? Okay.
Yeah. Pay, gear, I mean, I think where the board many times chooses to invest is health, safety, welfare.
Yeah.
Of both our employees and our residents. But the, one-time funds, all that money is gone. So,
Yeah.
While it was a great gift, it's certainly gone and don't see things like that occurring again. But, police and fire continue to cost us more. I mean, we were talking
They're
to Biles and I
expensive.
today about, the 3 stories of an apartment building, cause if you go any higher than that, then we need a ladder truck.
Yep.
So it's like every lever you pull causes something else to happen or causes something else to be needed. So it's while it might be great to have a 4 or 5, 6-story building, we don't have a fire truck that would be able to keep it safe.
And
So,
a ladder truck right now is a $1.8 million.
yeah, I was gonna
Yes,
say,
and-
you might as well say 2, but it's also 3 years to get it.
Yeah.
And ladder trucks age out too.
So, I mean, this maybe is a question directed to Miles. I mean, we're not a unique community, right?
Correct.
We're at a point where we're rapidly growing and we've got aging, infrastructure and, a tax base of, that's set in the 80s, right? Or
Yeah.
whatever, however you wanna
Correct.
articulate that,
Yeah.
right? And so, I'm assuming that there are planning models that articulate for communities that are in this stage of growth, here are the best set of tools and policy decisions that can be leveraged to help them transition to
Yeah.
whatever the next phase is.
Yeah, that's all accurate, and we talk about it a lot, but, and me and Karen talk about it a lot. The problems that Bath Township is experiencing are all growth problems, and I always say I'd rather deal with growth problems than decline problems, cause I worked in the city of Flint, and those choices are way worse. Those choices look like, hello, ma'am, that you've lived here for 80 years, these 4 blocks are being cut off from sewer. What am I going to do? We don't know, have a nice day, bye.
Yeah. That's happened to Detroit too.
So, the growth problems are challenging, but there are a lot. On the public safety side, I mean, this community has made a choice that they want police and fire.
Correct.
But I don't know, in my opinion, this is where we get in the realm of opinion. In my opinion, I don't know if this community hasn't fully internalized that cost. And I think Jennifer's out there in the audience, I think she talked about at the time, being like, no, they should internalize that cost. But in the meantime, over these hard choices that weren't made, that we've talked about, they were floating, since I've worked here, which has been since 2021, they've floated it from the general fund. And the deficit, I wouldn't say it's not deficit spending, but it's general fund spending, and if you project that out over 10 years, it becomes unsustainable. So those costs have to be internalized. That is the only option. Now, and some other stuff, there, I think at the board meeting, there was a presentation from the fire consultant, they talked about, going in on area services. The choices being made in the short term, that's not something that wants to be approached. But obviously there's 2 sides to the balance sheet. Either you can bring in more revenue, which is being discussed, or you can lower expenses, which in the short term, I don't think is gonna happen.
So there was an article, this weekend, I received it from another manager in the area, where Clinton area ambulance is having a difficult time, keeping the doors open. And I don't wanna characterize it as, like the end of the world, but in reading their words, like, we had looked at joining them, we had met with the Clinton County Administrator, talked about if we could get the whole county on Clinton area ambulance, could there be a millage to help us support that from the county? But they weren't interested in that. So we didn't go with Clinton area, and now their costs are going from $17 per capita to $22 per capita. And still no insurance if that will fix their problem and keep them open. So where we have looked for
2 things.
Opportunities
Yeah.
to partner and provide a larger service to the area, there hasn't been interest from the right people, or yet. I don't know whether to say it's a timing issue or if it's just we aren't interested in that. No, thank you.
I got 2 things
go
on
ahead.
that front, and I'm gonna try to bring it back on the second thing, back to economic development. On one front, I think all of us in this room, and I know Leap's working with the county, Tim obviously works with the county, we've interacted, Jason, you've worked with the county quite a bit. It's frustrating on the county side that sometimes you would think there'd be some leadership of like, hey, we could pool resources and maybe we could like help out with this thing. That doesn't happen, and I'm not sure exactly why, but in my experience, that doesn't happen. Strangely, to me, this is the only place I've ever worked where the county doesn't have more influence or is directly involved in like our local like, I don't see that, I've never heard from anybody at the county unless I go to the county, which I do sometimes just to check in. Which isn't a good feeling, by the way. Like, I wish they would reach out more. And that's a weird thing to say. But then bring it back to the economic development side. We're talking a lot about public safety right now, and I think the reason is it's hard for a community like Bath to say like, oh, well, we wanna stand up a small business grant program when they can't afford a fire truck. And I think that is kinda like where they're at.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, the economic development model of that, and this is what I always talk about, but it's hard, one planner trying to say this versus, like the police and fire chief, like I don't stand a chance, but I'm gonna say it anyways.
Yeah,
So the economic development model is like, okay, well, it's scarcity, right? Like you look at the pie and you're like, okay, well, there's only so many slices of the pie and the fire department needs a fire truck, so we have to take. Well, obviously, the economic development model doesn't work like that, cause you would say, well, if we make that $50,000 investment in the coffee shop and then that brings in another 20 houses, well, we've grown the pie at that point, so we don't have to worry about how many slices there are. But that's a hard argument to make when people are like, no, dude, like, we need a fire truck. not now, like 10 years ago, dude. Like, no, we're not spending 50,000 on anything.
Yeah,
And so I think that's the trap that Bass kinda in, and it's a real one.
yeah. And I think that you have been helpful, I mean, that's the reality that I live in every day, is this or this, this or this. And I'm constantly having to decide, and what people do value, I think all of us value when I slip and fall, or my house is on fire, that we wanna know that public safety's there.
You have an aging population that demands it.
You don't have to point at me like I just turned 50.
So let
Thank
me,
you
let
very
me,
much.
let me ask a question. How far out of alignment is Bath Township Police and Fire millage relative to, relevant SEV matched communities? So I'm thinking DeWitt Township, Meridian's probably a little
I
bit
can't answer
out.
that comparison, but I can tell you that we have been putting in at least $500,000 out of the general fund to supplement it. So it's, even with raising it recently, the voters approved raising it, from the 1980s, it's still not enough. So it's about $500,000 short at this.
It's not enough to fund
Today.
what the current.
Correct, today. And that's not
But-
fire
but-
trucks and stuff, that's just.
But what I'm
funding.
wondering is, you know, relative to the density of the population, SEV, you know,
Yeah.
are we
We'd have to
out
run
of
those numbers.
balance with what, you know, other communities who are not struggling are?
One, I don't have those numbers either, obviously, but like one, just in the built environment, one built-in advantage that DeWitt Township has versus, and we've talked about this too, versus Bath Township, is if you look at just their commercial makeup, commercial's huge for a tax base. Think about the old, 27, or old 127, or whatever it is, in DeWitt Township. All those, now, we obviously have Saginaw, and we have old M78, and we have BSNA, and we have, you know, we have a couple of things going on in Bath, so it's not like there's nothing there in the commercial. But I wanna say, doing a population comparisons, they are bigger than us population-wise, but a true comparisons would include commercial tax base versus commercial, and like Meridian Township, for example, our population is almost 14,000. Meridian Township, I wanna say, off the top of my head, is closer to 40. So you would think, oh, well, their operating rate would be just above 4 times what we are, but it's not, it's like 10 times. Their operating, their operating costs, and the reason for that is their commercial tax base is insane.
Yeah, so, I mean, here's two things I'm thinking about. Oftentimes, when it comes to budget conversations, you can derail a productive budget conversation by throwing in police and fire as some sort of mythology, right? Like, if we fuck up our, mess up our, funding model, the first thing that's gonna go is those elements of society that are related to your safety, right? What would be helpful, I think, you know, for me at least, is to see a proper comparison and just how far off are we? And then if we are really underfunded in terms of, police and fire specific millage, then we should, you know, be righting that ship.
Correct.
Right? And so, but without really, you know, seeing the data, you know, I do worry that, you know, we're lacking in a productive conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think we could put our heads together and do that work, so that the board and the planning commission could all see that, cause I do think that would be helpful as well.
Well, it sounds like you guys are in the midst of talking about, and it's, I didn't go to the meeting, but I know some of the planning commissioners were there, the revenue. I mean, that is what you guys are doing, you're
We are.
looking at this.
We are. But I do think that specifically, because that is what we talked about. You're correct. You know, it's like, well, if we don't have that extra $500,000, that's where it's being taken from, or that's where it's not gonna go. So I think you're correct in that we generally use that. So I think it would be a good comparison to take a look at.
Speaking of fire, DeWitt Township just built a new fire station, how did they fund that?
They bonded.
Most of it came from ARPA funds. It also came from the 427 funds, and then we bonded a bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, Andrew Demchek, our former township manager, was the one that worked all that. He did a really good job. He's known for it. But,
What's 427?
When the 427 agreement, when DeWitt Township gave up part of
425.
425.
425.
Thank you.
425?
No, I just, if there was something I didn't know, I
I
wanted to
didn't
know what
relate
it
to
was.
427
Thank you,
either.
I understand what you're talking about.
I got 2 clicks above.
No, it's okay.
And speaking of the restaurant downtown, or in the village area, it'd be nice to have one there. They tried to open up a few years ago. I think one of the mistakes they made, they didn't do anything to the outside of the building. You didn't drive down that street and say, oh, there's a nice new building, there's a nice looking restaurant. It looked like an old junk. So whenever they try to develop that restaurant, if somebody's gonna do it, somebody's gotta give them some money so they can fix up the outside of the building, so it's attractive to look at. I'm not gonna go eat dinner in a place that looks like a barn.
They have to fix the inside to make it non-condemnable.
That's true. There's a lot of work to do, you're
I
right.
think they're in the process right
But-
now,
Well, I
aren't
think
they?
they're in the process of
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah, I was in there with the building official actually, last week. We were looking at it, so. I think though, to that point, this is what me and Karen were talking about earlier, it's like, it is from my perspective, and again, I'm in the realm of opinion again. And there's other people that should probably wanna talk, but it's weird in Bath Township because you will see on one side, and now, this isn't unique to Bath, but you'll see one side, people being like, I need a coffee shop, can't wait to support it. But on the other side, and you had people from Hawk Hollow, and we had a large Hawk Hollow following one time, big, what's gonna go on? But when I first moved here, the diner was open, and I didn't see many people frequenting it. And it's like, well, you have to spend and I know Leap's here, and I think you guys have talked about this a lot in Old Town and Rio Town. If you want it to be a thing, you gotta go to it.
That's right.
And people talk out both sides of their mouth. They are like, we want the thing, oh, me and my wife, no, we only go to East Lansing. And it's like, alright, well then, don't even talk to me, you know?
Right.
Well, the other thing is how many people knew that diner was even open?
Well, that's the thing, and we talked to the gentleman who owned the laundromat, he came in the other day, and, he was like, we were talking about, I don't think he would care if we shared this, but we were talking about his business and Main Street and kinda the vibe and what business has been like, yes, and when I get these people in, I like to pick their brain, and he's like, yeah, like, we still don't get a lot of younger people, I'm like, well, dude, like, I just happened to pull you up on Google Maps, are you aware you're not on it? And he's like, yeah, I can't figure out that. I was like, dude, no, you don't understand, like, this isn't an option for you. If you think it's optional, it's not. This is not the 1980s. No one's opening the newspaper to figure out when the washer and dryer hours are. If you're not on Google, you're saying, I would like to go out of business. And so, I don't know if anybody noticed, but like 2 weeks later, he got on Google.
Good job, Miles.
But he reached out, Bath is great, I think he reached out to the Facebook page and he said, does anybody know how to get a business on Google? And somebody reached out and helped him. And that's where Bath shines, people wanna help each other in Bath. They
Yeah.
helped him and now he's on Google and we're all good.
Yeah.
But,
I'll sit so that
Okay,
more
sorry.
people can. No, you're fine.
but yeah, it's like, it's a multifaceted problem.
Good evening.
Scared to come up now. Take us along.
Sorry.
So my name is Emma Bostwick. I'm with the Lansing Economic Area Partnership. I'm Vice President of Business Attraction. I'm here with my colleague Devin Pingle. We didn't want to overwhelm you, so we're just
No.
gonna go up one by one.
Well, thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having us. Comprehensive development planning is always critically important, and I think we've had a lot of discussions about what that looks like. So perhaps I can speak on a couple of trends that we're seeing, both regionally in the county, some also reporting that we've also acknowledged. So one piece, and I should follow up with you, is that across the region and the county, the concern related to infrastructure is happening everywhere. And perhaps I'm a little bit of a reality check, for better or for worse, but we know that ARPA funding is coming to a close. We also know that revenue sharing to municipalities is not at where it should have been, or keeping at the rate that it was proposed to do, and even with new legislation that has been proposed, that outcome is still not happening at the rate that was supposed to be. And over in Delta Township, Ryan Reed actually has done a really big analysis working with Michigan Municipal League and the Township Association, so perhaps that's something that you guys could connect on, because he's identifying these trends, not only in his township, but across the state of Michigan, where that infrastructure gap is just so big. And it is mattering whether you're growing or even slowing down. It's just so aged right now in the state of Michigan. And we're seeing less and less of that investment that typically would come along. And even more so when it comes to even projects like the Norm Fastener project. I don't know that if something were to be proposed today, I don't know that it would have that same grant, whether you would agree or disagree with the project. That's no longer there as far as the state funding mechanism goes. Some broader things too is that he spoke on population growth, and we're seeing that continue to grow. Our region grows at a stagnant rate. We actually commissioned with public sector consultants a population analysis, which looked at that 25 kind of year visioning. So I couldn't see behind the podium, but somebody mentioned, you know, what's happening in 20 to 30 years, and that population growth is obviously a really key component of it. So our region will grow at about a 5% rate. That's actually better than the state of Michigan, which is predicted to actually decline over the next 25 years. However, what we're seeing that increase in is typically in your older residents, perhaps, those that may use more of those emergency services, as was discussed a little bit more. And what we're seeing too, of course, is the school enrollment is dropping significantly already, but will continue to drop in the next 25 years. And I will follow up with Miles on that kind of report analysis and send it to you to also share around on what was publicly available. But that is happening across our region, that we're seeing even that stagnant growth is not really the exponential growth to kind of cover these revenue gaps that are predicted to come as a result of aging infrastructure. One other kind of piece that I want to talk about LEAP on, and you were talking about the gentleman who didn't know about Google SEO or maps and all those good things. So LEAP on the other side, we have our small business programming. And I think the hardest part about it is getting it out there. We try our best to make sure people know about it. But we actually had a program dedicated to like using technology in your business. It's unavoidable at this point. And we work with over 900 different businesses here in the region, and so we're still trying to get out there more and more, but it's to help that technical assistance part, because we realize, you know, somebody may not have that money for a facade improvement on the exterior. They may be budgeting in their financial pro forma for something else, who knows, but that's where we can at least come in and provide, either through a partnership opportunity like with the Small Business Development Center or one of our own technical assistance providers, somebody to help them essentially kind of handhold or at least identify what next steps need to be happening. So that's one thing, is that we could better, you know, work on those kind of connections. Like if you hear about that, that's something that we just literally did a webinar for free on.
That's great to know.
And also we host in-person workshops and all those good things. So that's something that, you know, it's continuing getting the word out, but if you're not already on the public domain, it's hard to find. So that's one piece of it that I just kind of wanted to call out on the small business development. I think too, I saw in the Giffords and Webster recommendation, the redevelopment ready communities, we're seeing that kind of like kick back up as an MEDC program. That really tells a developer, whether it's a small business or other, that you kind of know that plan and process. And with Miles, of course, being the best planner in the county, I think you probably are already 3/4 of the way there. But it's a formalized process to try and help businesses and developers that maybe I've done this in one community. They kind of see a copy and paste format. Of course, it's unique to the community, but it's set up with these kind of templated procedures, if you will, that have been kind of established as best practice across the state of Michigan. So I'm sure, like I said, you're probably already 3/4 of the way there, but that really does help somebody who's new to understand, like, if you didn't want a retail with housing on top, then they know that right up front, rather than putting maybe capital into the architecture and engineering to do the pretty drawings to later find out that's not really what's wanted. So that always helps clearly communicate. We're obviously seeing a really big gap in financing right now anyways with small business. It's harder to open a small business now than it ever was. We're seeing a lot of succession planning where folks that may not have a kiddo to pass on the, business to end up closing, which is really sad. So we're seeing a lot of that happen and then that not passing on as well. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for small businesses to continue to grow, but we're also seeing a lot of challenges as far as trends happening here. So that's kind of really high level on kind of what we're seeing across the area. I'm sure Miles knows these stats better than I do, but here in the regional area, our housing stock is roughly in the 1970s when it was built. I mean, it's an aging housing stock naturally here in the Tri-County region. We're seeing more of a demand for growth on housing than ever, but yet you're faced with this issue of the housing continuum of where do people stay after their single-family house or after they graduate from Michigan State University. We're seeing that the aging population is typically staying in their homes longer. It's that entire cycle that helps essentially flow through from one person to the next. And that's just been a really huge struggle here in the Tri-County region. Of course, that's kind of why the state is going after some initiatives, but even those, I would say, in the past year, are increasingly that fund balance is going down. So we're seeing a lot of the times the local municipalities are the ones stepping up, even if it's a statewide need, and filling those gaps. So, yeah.
Going back to the high level, is there any discussion or forecasting on the impacts of generative AI?
There has been, they just released one, from my understanding, with Anderson Economic Group on more of like the economic impact in Michigan. I'll try and find that link. I think it's on their website. I haven't yet heard anything though, like out of Michigan State University or University of Ann Arbor from like a research point. I know the State Department LEO, Labor Economic Opportunity, has been also dabbling in some studies, but I don't know where they're at on that. But that's a great question. Yeah.
Well, the stock market freaked out yesterday. I don't know if anybody saw that, because a report came out about
This-
generative AI and what it was gonna do to the
It's a
job
Trini
rate.
Yeah.
research report.
Yeah, the Dow, dropped 800 points yesterday. I think it rebounded today, but.
Yeah, and of course with this region being very manufacturing oriented, there's a lot of special attention, I think, that the state is kind of looking at, especially like in Detroit or Flint or other areas, as well as that deindustrialization and then what's next. Are we gonna lose population with people moving out completely because there's no next step? There's a lot of questions happening right now.
I'm actually curious what proportion of our working population is, quote, white collar.
Yeah.
We can pull that data.
Emma, just because you're here,
Oh, geez.
well, no, I think it's fine. Well, no, I don't know if people are aware, but I mean, you do a lot in the childcare space, and
Yeah.
obviously like that, I think, in my opinion, that's directly correlated to economic development. If I can't drop my kid off at an affordable
Yes.
rate to go somewhere, it looks like either me or my wife are quitting our jobs.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, boy, yeah.
what do
I
you-
said I was gonna come with a reality check, so I don't know if
Yeah,
you're.
no, I mean, what do you think? Like, you're the person to ask about
Yeah,
this.
I kinda actually looked, and I noticed within the Giffords and Webster, they didn't identify, childcare as a need. So I don't know if that's more of like who the sample.
It could have been in one of the other 63 slides,
Okay,
but.
Perfect, I totally trust that that's possible. And I think it is also obviously reflective of the immediate community. Again, it also ties into that K-12 kind of system of what is, Bath School's looking at right now, and I think that they're honestly still struggling with that enrollment. They're always gonna make it or not. I have a family member that works there, but essentially what we're seeing on childcare, and we really looked at it as LEAP a couple years ago as an economic development component, just as public transit is important, workforce development, childcare is part of that. The workforce simply cannot work if there's no childcare. And what we also saw was, as a result of COVID, more and more childcare providers were actually closing, and that has not yet stabilized, unfortunately. And we, right now, for example, in this region, are in a 4-to-1 childcare demand to ratio slot. So that means for every 4 kiddos, there's only 1 slot available for them. And that's even more exacerbated with infant and toddlers because they require more dedicated care, for example. And so what we're seeing is sometimes, like Miles just mentioned, somebody leaves the workforce, or perhaps they go part-time, Obviously, if they have more than one kiddo, that might be for more than a couple of years rather than 1 or 2 before they can even get into daycare. Wait lists are astronomical. There's a common joke that says, once you get pregnant, you should sign up then and there, and even then you might be 6 months late. Because it's just so high demand. Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of like grandparents and, you know, family members take in neighbors, which is really amazing, but it's not the type of necessary care or the training sometimes that people feel comfortable with. It's also not always consistent. Some family member might be on vacation down in Florida for those 6 weeks we all wish we were there for, and that leaves somebody out of childcare for 6 weeks because that family member is gone. So we've seen that obviously be a huge factor, and then of course the cost. And costs are only going up for childcare providers as businesses. They have typically only a 10% return, if that, on their business. So similar to restaurants who often operate in the red, but more often are 1 to 5%. Childcare providers are also kind of a very low profit, quote unquote, business, if you will. So here in the region, it's just been so exasperated. Like I mentioned, it's happening across the state of Michigan. There's been some really great initiatives, I think, coming out of the state. One of those was the Regional Child Care Coalition, which LEAP is the fiduciary and lead on. That has over 70 coalition members to help really challenge what can we do at a local level. Some of it is zoning and planning, not to call Miles out, where it's unfortunately and not even on purpose that some zoning doesn't allow for 24-hour care, or it doesn't allow for, you know, evening care, or a certain amount of things that is just on accident. We've seen even from the state, sometimes the codes and recommendations they provide are exclusionary on accident. So we're trying to break down barriers in the zoning and planning space, but also just in general as small businesses, childcare providers also have a hard market to entry. They have their different barriers, whether it's a new playground set or a new updated water drinking fountain system, all very, very expensive for a very low profit type of agency. We're also seeing a lot of turnover in the industry, very frankly. I mean, it doesn't pay well. This is a profession that requires at least 2 years of credentialing, if you will, and we're seeing fewer and fewer people go into that talent pipeline. So as a result, there's a lot of turnover in this industry with very low pay, and that's why we're seeing a lot of these childcare providers close. We see a lot of opportunity. There's many that want to grow, but it's capital expenditures up front. And that's very expensive, just like building costs are going up. It's very expensive for a childcare provider to open a new center or even redevelop a former school building or, you know, a church or something, so.
What's the typical, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
and it's important for economic development, because if you are paying for a
It's a
house that's
mortgage.
more
It's a
expensive,
mortgage.
and you're paying for healthcare that's
Yep.
more, and you don't have money to, disposable income's not a thing anymore.
Yep.
What is the, in the Lansing area of,
It's
let's say,
1,200 to 1,700
okay,
per kiddo, again, dependent on the age group. Infant toddler is more expensive. And obviously, if you have more than one kiddo, you're paying more than a mortgage and a car payment and your health insurance combined, right? So it's very expensive. So when you talk about small businesses, people don't have that extra income to spend at small businesses. So we're also seeing that constraint is that this region doesn't have as high of that wealth, if you will, compared to other concentrated regions. And so that discretionary spending obviously comes really importantly down to small businesses. And if that doesn't exist, then that also makes it hard for the local small businesses to survive. So it all adds up.
cool.
The last
I
time
had to ask about
I'm sorry.
childcare. Sorry, no, go
The
ahead.
last time I went to a state meeting about childcare, there was 17 different agencies
Yeah.
that you had to get permission from to
Yeah, there's
open
probably
or modify.
25 now. For context, like, they have to have a fire suppression system. It's required to be approved by the state. It can't go through the local folks. There are 2 people currently approving fire suppression systems for all childcare providers in the entire state of Michigan. So when you're even talking about permitting, everything could be beautiful on the ground, but without that fire check, you're looking at a 6 to 12 minute or 12 month basically slowdown in your
Yep.
process. And that's money. People are losing contracts that they may have to support kiddos through the
Yep.
Great Start to Readiness program, the free preschool program. So it's a really convoluted system, very complicated. So I hope I didn't over explained, but it really is just a hard industry to be in, I think, naturally, and it's for our future generations and our future population. So, yeah.
Is there anybody working to expedite that system at all?
Well, trying to. I mean, a lot of it is bringing attention to the fact that the state literally just needs to hire more people, put more people in that department for these childcare providers, but it just seems like the licensing and permitting, which is all important, don't get me wrong.
Right.
It's just so long that it doesn't happen. And so it's a very well-known issue, it just hasn't seen the needle move, honestly. And it's so bureaucratic. I don't know if it's just because it's so in the weeds or what, so.
Yeah, we had somebody that gave up, remember that? Mm-hmm. The process was so drug out,
It was the health department,
yeah,
the famous health department.
the famous health department.
Well, there was some good news, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, pre-K,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
That's huge. That's 1 year,
Yep,
right? So if
pre-K
I'm
is
looking at my
now free
household
for
budget.
those at 200% AMI, so that's a pretty big portion of this regional population. What we're seeing though, again, I'm sorry to be Debbie Downer.
Yeah, I was hoping there was some good
Is
news.
that you expand this free program, but there's not enough teachers and not
Yeah.
enough classroom space. So you increase the demand without increasing the supply a little bit, so, sorry.
Yeah.
But you get it free if you can find it, right? So,
That's
So-
only half day.
Okay, I mean, let's check the math here, right? So here's what I've heard over the course of this meeting.
do I step away now? or-
No.
Please don't.
So we have aging infrastructure, we have underfunded health or safety, we have unaffordable childcare, we have a stagnant growth in the population
In the future,
You're putting the picture
in the
together.
future. I mean,
yeah.
I'm hearing all these barriers, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering if what we think about in development is winding down development, in anticipation of, a struggling population or a dwindling population.
That wouldn't be the argument I would make. I think,
Well, where's the math?
I'm with you, and he's ever the positive,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think, cause we talked about this a little bit earlier, and Emma backed me up here. But, we were kinda going, that path was occurring earlier, I was like, listen, hey, everyone's got problems. Again, all the problems that we were talking about are growth, they are growth problems in
And
this
it's
area.
not unique to Bath Township.
No.
I don't know if that makes you feel better.
And I think if you start going down I told Karen, like, if we really go too deep down that vein of thinking, I'm like, well, we might as well just pack it up and move to the Sun Belt. But we're not gonna do that, so let's figure out how to move forward.
Yeah, it's a death cycle, I think, if you look at it the other way, because you are gonna hit that impetus where you have a decreasing population that then is no longer in your homes, is no longer spending that discretionary funds with small businesses. So I think you made a great point in economic development, we look at increasing the pie more with more people. And I think that's where we're kinda in a pivotal moment, even in the planning development discussion, but in this region is, what do we wanna look like in the next 20 to 25 years? Are we content with stagnant population growth when we have all these added costs? Inflation will continue to increase, childcare will continue to increase, what do we do, right? And so I think that's kind of the important concept is, then what does development look like? Because typically in economic development, that's what you're here for. You want to increase that pie, so who does that mean the pie is increasing? Who do you wanna attract to increase that pie? Is it residents, is it multifamily, single house, is it industrial, is it warehousing? Whatever it may be, to try and increase that tax base, to help support those costs.
Well said. Yeah, I think also too, like macro trends that get talked about a lot in my industry are, I think we talked about it a little bit today, we used a micro example, but there is gonna be a big shift here. A lot of people think in the US, like the biggest wealth transfer in our society is from like the poor to the rich, so it's not necessarily, the biggest ownership of wealth in America right now is the baby boomer generation. And we've talked about generational trends a lot, so if some of you might know, big generations make big generations, the baby boomers produce the millennials. And Gen X, a smaller generation, produced another smaller generation, Gen Z. the baby boomers are aging out, and in the land use space, there's a lot of economic development that placates to the baby boomers right now. That's why a really hot land use item right now is, facilities that let people either age in place or assisted living facilities. Everyone's looking at assisted living facilities. Some planners feel like we might wanna restrict how many of these we build out, because in a few short years, there won't be nearly as much demand, because our largest generation will no longer be with us. And Gen X, there's just not enough of them to fill the void. And when that large generation is on, there will be an extreme wealth transfer that's about to occur in this country, where a lot of wealth from the baby boomers will be transferred to their, children, which are by and large millennials. So it's like, how do you plan for that? And that's kind of projecting out 20, 30 years. I'm not trying, I hate, sometimes it can get sensitive to talk about money and generations and all that.
Mad because the wealth doesn't come into the Gen X.
Yeah, I don't know really where Gen X fits into this. Gen X has gotta figure it out, I don't know,
Yeah, Miles and I'll be buying the mansion.
yeah.
I don't know.
But I think all I'm trying to say is a macro example of what we're talking about tonight, which is you gotta plan for the future. Somebody said it earlier, which was the cities and municipalities that look great and where people are moving to, they started planning 30 years ago. But what's that saying? It's like, if you can't start planning 30 years ago, well, then the best time to start is today. The second best, if you can't do it yesterday, the second best time is today.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what.
Brady's been saying it for the last 10 years.
Yeah, but I think that's what we're trying to do tonight. I haven't been here this is my first comp plan process that I've gotten to be a part of with you guys from the get-go, and so I would hope that we're trying to look forward and figure out what that looks like. And I think you pointed out, there's a lot of negatives, and there's money.
I didn't point,
There's a lot of challenges, it's challenges.
Challenges.
There's a lot of opportunities.
Opportunities, yes, I like that word, but I think the thing is just trying to look at the, opportunities and, where do you put those dollars, so each dollar spent creates $3 back, and I guess that's what I'm trying to get out of this conversation tonight, cause I have to ultimately report all this back to Giffel and Webster and figure out, well, how can we translate what we heard into words on a piece of paper that can become an actionable plan? So if anybody's got any thoughts on that realm, I'd love that.
we need to know what the tools are in the potential toolbox, right? You know, millages, bonds, what are tax abatements that, we could leverage? I mean, I know of one, manufacturing site that we lost, in the past, 7 years, they went to Delta Township, and because there was, an unwillingness by the township to provide any sort of incentive to stay.
I don't know, yeah, which one are what are we talking about?
This is prior to your time.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I was like, cause Norm Fasteners, I mean, there was, obviously, that one didn't work out, but I still believe, in my opinion, there was.
Pro Metalworks.
Pro Metalworks. There was extenuating circumstances, but I thought the township brought good offers to the table. I mean, there was an abatement period that was passed by the board, and so it wasn't like
But that was the first one we've done, right?
abatements. Yeah.
And yeah, it's unclear to me as a planning commissioner, what are the, tools that we can, lean on, or the drivers?
I think the problem for the board sometimes on answering that, and we have two board members and then obviously the superintendent here involved, is like, it depends. I mean, you have a
Come to us and ask us for something.
Well, I would
That's
assume
what Norm did.
that there's a difference between somebody that says, we're coming with 200 employees versus a data center, which will ultimately, have a different employee makeup. Not that a data center has been approached by Bath Township and anyone has talked to anyone about a data center, has not.
But, I mean, one tool is to wait until someone approaches us with a proposal, right? isn't there another pathway?
There is, and
Yeah.
I think that's something that we're trying to figure out. There is another pathway. You can also like say, this is our intention and here are policy options to get you there.
Can't we do like a development RFP type process? And
On which parcel?
well, I mean, there's any number of parcels. I mean, if we were to develop
Yeah.
I have a conversation with Kessler for the one right over here. We know what kind of development we think that we want there, say it's a restaurant or, mixed commercial, use. Could we pre-identify what we're willing to do as a township in terms of tax abatements or other incentives, whether it's sewer credits or something? And then, reach out to area developers to say, hey, here's what we're willing to offer, here's the type of development that we'd like to see. So that we're doing the outreach to developers, not waiting, on, a high chair, waiting for developers to come to us with some sort of pitch.
So-
Go ahead.
I attend area development conferences, like that's my job, is to work with site selectors and site consultants to identify potential opportunities for growth. They're not looking at retail commercial. I mean, that's about 20% of perhaps all projects that come through, but they're even more competitive because there's just so many more locations suitable for retail and commercial. The traditional bread and butter project, if you will, that a site selector is working on is something in the industrial warehouse, food distribution space.
Now, with that being said, though, I wanna say that, we had a conversation a while ago about, it's not easy to stand up a restaurant, the margins are razor thin, you have to be talented, I think,
The
to
Commercial Rehab
operate.
Act sunsetted
Yeah,
with
there's
the legislature.
some funding in that space has dried up recently, which isn't ideal. But I think, like, you're saying like almost like a hyper-specific example, which in my mind gets problematic sometimes, cause to Karen's point, like, the landowner also has a say, so that requires buy-in from the landowner, which maybe you can or can't get. My preference is always to either set up, if we're gonna go the local grant route, and I have seen that done, it would be, and I'm not saying we're talking about that, but I think first you have to identify, okay, well, what is the goal? Okay, well, the goal is a locally owned restaurant. Okay, well then, if that's the goal, there's two options available to the local municipality. In my mind, you either set up a grant program where you say, you have to be a resident of the township, and if you just put that out there and say like, hey, we're looking for this, here's a pot of money, I think ultimately people will hear about it and go after it. It doesn't also have to be a grant, by the way, you could set up a 0%, and the state has done this before, you could set up a 0% interest loan with the caveat of if you stay in business for 10 years in the township, on the 10th year, we forgive the loan. So that's, I've seen it done both ways. I always like those options. I'm seeing local units set those up because then it just like kind of puts the feelers out there. But
Less risk.
yeah, and it still makes the marketplace I always like when the free market can kind of operate. I feel like government has a place, but if we try to like put our thumb too heavy on the scale of the market, we can almost be setting it up for failure, cause we're subsidizing something that can't stand on its own two legs.
Yep.
The other option is, there is a new program under the Brownfield Redevelopment Act, that's housing TIF, I know we've.
Well, that's something
discussed
where it would be nice to have leadership from the county. I don't know if these guys even know about that, but that's something where in other areas of the state, we're seeing the county step in and provide leadership. We could set one up here, but it'd be a heavy lift for a local unit of our
100%,
size.
And,
Yeah.
but to your point, it has an allowable eligible use that was not typically allowable for other communities that were not core, and that's public infrastructure. So what we're seeing is a tool for developers to use that up front. But that is really challenging. I mean, it's a very heavy administrative burden and getting planning and bylaws and all of those things together, and then you're having to commit that administrative time to basically checking on a long-term TIF plan, that could be 20 years, and the compliance that goes with that. We run the county one, and it's
It's
very
a lot.
intense. And
It's
it
a
takes a
lot.
long time to build that fund back, for revolving loan fund or something else, but.
Yeah, I just don't see that as a viable option for us,
Yeah.
like on the local, but if Clayton County would stand it up, I mean, I would donate my time to do that, but that,
So, I mean, speaking of Clinton County, it's actually an interesting,
Sorry, Emma.
development use case, right? Part of the dysfunction of the county right now is specifically related to development, that was incentivized or that was, brought up, and so the Eagle Township development. Right, the current Clinton County leadership has been shifted because of community dissatisfaction with how that, rolled out. And so, I think there might be a lesson there with, various extremes of developments that we look into. And the extent to which, there's community buy-in for that kind of development.
Yeah, I mean, on our end, I know me and Karen, when we got approached by Norm Fastener, I mean, we took some lessons from Eagle too, and you did a good job of being like, no, we're gonna be 100% transparent right out of the gate, like, let's go to the board, we're not signing anything, and I think that ended up to our benefit, it seemed like a much easier process, so I think there were some missteps from Eagle, but I do agree that the county felt a little bit burned. And yeah, it's been a weird vibe, to use a Gen Z term. All right, I've done a lot of talking. There is a gentleman here that deals with infrastructure day in and day out. I don't know, Chair.
Wait a minute.
I don't. Maybe like infrastructure is a big part, Jonathan.
Yeah,
Like I don't know,
absolutely.
Chair. Do you wanna?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I thought it was
Archer
gonna
sounds like a superhero name.
Yeah.
Jonathan Archer. You brought maps.
I thought this was show and tell, so I brought maps for.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh,
Well,
Those are the maps we asked for, John.
Yes,
these
it
are
is.
some of the maps we asked for, yes.
I was gonna call Brad to see if you get those done yet.
So, kinda taking these, there's like 5 or 6 of them here, showing a little different, shows the system.
Would you like one?
Kind of the green properties there, just kind of give you an idea of what the property looks like.
Different one.
Here, there we are, trying to do one for the audience.
What you call a share.
This one,
Are they all different maps?
this one's a little different, this one shows the sewer system by decades, as it was put in.
This has green on it.
Unfortunately,
You're right.
Yeah,
the,
they're different maps.
70s and
But
90s, or
the
80s
sewer system is the
were a
sewer
lot different on
system.
the
It's
screen,
just different.
and they didn't print very well here, so.
Yeah,
But
I
give you an
can see
idea of
that.
how the system
These
has
two look the
developed
same.
over the years.
For some reason, SCUMA service bars didn't really end up on this map.
Yeah. So Jonathan, do you wanna talk kind of about just high level, your thoughts on the sewer system, how that affects economic development? You've worked for SCUMA far longer than I've been around. What's been your experience?
So, a little background, I've been here, 12 years now, and seen quite a bit of change in the system. When I started, there wasn't a lot of forethought going into, long-term management of the system. I mean, previous, the guy I replaced, previous SCUMA, managers, they've done a good job managing the system, but there was still some long-term stuff that wasn't taken care of. And, we've done quite a bit of work on updating lift stations, pumps, doing what we can internally, not having to do full rebuilds on stuff. We've been doing a lot of spot repairs, minor stuff, keeping everything flowing. We've done some major, pipe renovation, lining of the 18-inch, interceptor on, Ann, going up through Hawk Hollow, redoing, the lift station right over here, 203, which handles, well over half the flow from the township, and sends that up to 201. So there's been a lot of work going on in the system, but there is still some work to be done.
Well, so for those that don't know, whenever we we bring a commercial development to the planning commission for site plan review. After the introduction, we kick out an agency review. Jonathan handles the agency reviews for SCUMA side, so he's the person I email. So on the development side, Jonathan, can you talk about what your experience has been with some of these commercial developments, like what does that look like? What's been successful, what's been challenging?
That's a good question.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
Well, I mean, so we've had development along Saginaw.
Yep.
That's gone very well. I mean, Meyer came in before me, before I hired in. We've had a couple, small restaurants, the Taco Bell, the fast food, the coffee shop.
Ace Hardware was a little bit bigger, we did a
Ace
main
Hardware,
line.
That was a major development that's gone in along that corridor.
I feel like that went particularly smooth with the Martin Group.
Those projects have all gone really smooth. The Norm Fasteners, that was one I was really hoping to see go through, I think would have been a great benefit for the township. Would have helped us with some of the sanitary, looking at some long-term storage and how we can manage the system.
But that was complicated, like the
That
Norm
was
Faster one.
complicated. There was more going on, I think, outside of the township that really affected that.
But
So-
elevations were complicated, we had to work through Eagle, the township had to get a permit through Eagle, we were doing exploratory, like.
Right, I mean, there was a lot of layers on that going on.
And in my experience, I feel like the Ace Hardware, like the smoothness we experienced with Ace Hardware almost feels like that's not the norm. Typically.
It should be the norm.
I know, but typically I feel like we're working through layers of
But The
difficulty.
advantage with Ace Hardware is the system, from the sanitary aspect, you had an existing system out front that it was easy to tie into. You had a nice chunk of land parcel that was already there, developed, or intended to be developed, you know, that was a commercial area that was intended to be there.
And we gravity fed into a gravity system.
Right.
Right.
So Norm Fasteners now move forward, you know, that wasn't an area that wasn't originally intended to be developed that way, it was always a farm field.
The soil
The
type
sewer wasn't
wasn't
there,
ideal.
existing, like with the Saginaw corridor.
Elevation was a
And
problem.
elevation, just trying to deal with elevation and the way the site was laid out, and, you know, maybe we could have done things different if the building was different shaped or sized or, you know, whatever, and dealing with some of the wetlands in that area, so, there were issues with that site.
I got one more, and then I'll stop.
Go ahead. Don't restrict it to one.
Cause I need to give, my mission is to get stuff out of this to give to Gipple and Webster. So, Jonathan, you've been an engineer kinda in the civil space for a while. So not just from the sewer perspective, but you know, you understand water, you know, it all works, it's all interrelated. What would you do to make the barriers to entry easier for development? Like, king for a day, you can make some changes, what would you do?
Yeah, this is where it's difficult because the system, from the utility side, sewer and water, you're kinda at the reaches of everything right now. So, you don't have a lot of space in between to fill in. Now, there is areas that can be developed, where those utilities could be reached. But it's gonna take a little maneuvering to get that stuff done. The M78 corridor, Old Lansing Road, you know, that I think is gonna see a lot of or has the potential of developing. Saginaw, that portion is developed. There's not a lot left in that area.
There's a couple
You got the-
infill.
You got the old, convenience store, motel, you know, that area that could be redeveloped in some way. But once that's done, that corridor is
Pretty full.
virtually full.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to extend down 78 there,
Towards the east,
to the east.
okay.
but you don't have any utilities right there at this time. So, this is where it gets hard. Do you rely on the developer to put those utilities in? Or does the township make an investment and put some of that infrastructure in?
Or do you use one of these complicated funding revenues that Brian and Newhoff talks about?
Well,
Sometimes they're
yeah.
more common in the Grand Rapids area.
Yeah, I mean, there's options there, but it's, essentially, it's gonna be, is the township leading the way, or are you gonna have a developer lead the way? Funding wise, it's gonna be tough for the township.
Yeah.
You know, we have, going back, it's some aging infrastructure. We're making some changes, in the Chandler corridor area, that's gonna help. We're gonna be doing some, lining on Webster Road, trying to maintain that, interceptor, the large diameter pipe that handles a lot of the main sewer coming from the south. Those are our big projects. And then after that, for us, on the sanitary side, it's gonna be maintaining, it's gonna be the small stuff, any small repairs that need to be done. But hopefully those will take care of the big stuff in the near future. But to expand, you're gonna have to, it's gonna come down to the funding, who funds that development? Who guides that? Is it gonna be developer or is it gonna be township? Ideally, it's nice to have that development already, that infrastructure there, or at least the seed of it. Cause you, again, going back to Ace Hardware, they had that gravity sewer out in front. Yes, they had to run a line back into, to get to the new building, to get to the back space that could eventually be developed again.
And they kinda teed themselves up for that.
Right, they're thinking long-term, but they had something to, they had a seed that they could come off of.
Yeah.
78, you don't have that seed necessarily. So,
So just to gather my thoughts on what you're saying, just kinda how, Commissioner Almarigi did, it sounds like growth in the system is a necessity to see future development,
right,
but that growth needs to be planned out, and funding that growth is, and figuring out how to fund that correctly is imperative. I mean, that's usable information, so I appreciate that.
yeah. So,
Can we talk about Drumheller Road?
Oh, what road?
Drumheller.
Drumheller, okay.
So
A
between
very talked about
Chandler
road.
and Webster, I know there's been a lot of discussion about paving it. How much of that can be developed?
Yeah, I don't know that. So, right, let me,
I'm not,
We don't have the funds to do that. Maybe in 20 years.
well, then, I'm, what I'm trying to think of is, you know, where are our areas of development, right?
No, that's
You
a-
know, we talk about Saginaw, and we've got, what, 2 parcels that can be developed on that main stretch. It's a question of whether or not people are gonna wanna develop on old Saginaw because of how weird that road is. I mean, that's a solvable problem, but, you know, outside of that, I mean, we've got the Kessler property back here.
well, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I mean, I don't wanna I believe Mr. Archer's assessment is correct, that growth is gonna happen, is gonna have to happen to have development long-term. But in the short term, I don't think there's any lack of opportunity for infill development.
if I may.
Yeah.
You know, Drumheller would be a good kind of an infill. You got, from a utility side, again, we have the lift station 203 there at the east end.
Yeah.
That could be extended to the west. You have quite a bit of property there that could develop, whether it be a commercial or residential. You have that option. There's water coming up Chandler.
And from the zoning side, it is zoned for it.
Yeah.
It's zoned for it. So that's, in the Slagle property there is getting towards the end of its life cycle in terms of reclamation. And so he is open that he's thinking about, okay, well, what does the next chapter for kind of all of these properties here look like? We've had a lot of interest in this property here, and I think it's even been split at this point. This map doesn't reflect that. But, yeah, it's on the other side of the fire department. We've had some interest from developers. When I first got here, there was a larger church that was proposed there at one point, which I kinda like, cause then it would make our cemetery make sense to the layperson. We've even had a developer from Grand Rapids, I saw at one point, like a PUD proposed there, which never went through, I think largely for water reasons there. I don't mean, hook up to municipal water, like it's wet in the very front of that property, and they're trying to figure out how to engineer their way out of that, and it just got too pricey. But also, like a property we see a lot of interest in is the old motel property, but this property is underutilized. They know it, we know it, every developer knows it, the property behind it is underutilized. I think Todd Costa owns that right now, and he's always actively seeking somebody to come in. Todd Costa also owns these two properties back here, which, the sewer line was built to, so these are just, I mean, that's 4 parcels right there where sewer is ready, available, water is ready, available, infill development can't, so there's opportunities in the short run. I don't wanna undersell that either. Capitalizing on those opportunities though, and building, even the perception, we talk about in economics, like people that are more econ minded would say like perception is reality. If the business climate in the greater Lansing area has identified a community as a non-workable community, it is kind of a death sentence on the community. I don't think people view Bath Township in that way. I mean, there's economic development people in the room, but, putting that perception out there is probably important too. Like, hey, we are a community that's looking to do some infill development. We're open to ideas. I think that's important. So like a potential policy option there would be, well, I've talked about this, but like a marketing strategy, like how do we market ourselves to the business community? There's a lot of different ways that can manifest. I don't know.
Jonathan, if you don't mind, one of the topics that the planning commission has dealt with is where is it economically feasible to develop based on the sewer capacity that we presently have without incurring a lot of additional capital costs? Because a sewer system is kind of like a bucket brigade in a lot of ways.
Right.
It might be a prime, if you can't answer it, that might be a prime.
Yeah, I mean, it's more the infill stuff,
You want one of the maps?
Yeah, you need a map? You want a sewer map?
Sure. Or this works if you
Okay.
can pull it out a little bit.
Yeah, I'll go to this one, actually. The aerial is probably easier.
Yeah.
So there's Myers, there's Ace.
So, you know, this is developing now.
Yep, that's presently under
Yeah,
development.
so in the south here, you're not gonna get a lot more, unless you go up Old 78. You have a couple miscellaneous properties here. If you wanna pull down aisles.
Mm-hmm. Where are we going?
Coleman, you know, you got this area up in here, which there had been a little bit of interest.
We get a lot of phone calls about these 3 parcels here. The problem, my understanding is sewer gravity fed extends to these 2 branches here. But that sewer kind of dead ends right there, so every
So-
developer we talk to, we're like, okay, well, you're gonna have to carry it another almost 2,000 feet.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's, the issue here is getting it out, you're gonna have another lift station, move it to another spot. Moving this way to the west, the golf course potentially, I know Kessler had once kinda talked, maybe taking part of that.
I haven't heard anything about that, but my understanding on the golf course size, most golf courses develop where they do for a reason. That's
Right.
usually because the soil type doesn't support other forms of development.
Yeah.
But that has some option, you're near some of the sewer, that if they did ever want to take part of that, that would help. If we go west a little bit more, this is part of the Lansing, the Johnson property, goes to East Lansing.
Well, and this is, everyone knows the story of this area. This is what we're currently working on now. And there's a lot of positives coming out of this project now, and hopefully that unlocks, you know, some REUs.
So, now if you go north,
Wait, can we go back? I just wanna make
Okay.
sure I understand what you just said and where you were saying it.
Well, so there's pent-up market demand to do something with particularly these three parcels.
right,
And that's Westpac, right?
yes.
Westpac owns those right now. We've had other companies though that, the leadership, I think, at Westpac is not interested, they're working with other companies. On the East Lansing side, we've gotten interest from these properties before for commercial land use, and then there's all these DeWitt parcels too that could feasibly tap into our system. Agreements would have to be worked out. There's some barriers to entry on the Johnson side since they sold their development rights, so there would be market forces that would push them away from developing, but it's not like out of the realm. However, this project,
But when you say they sold their development rights, that was because they signed a tax agreement with the state for conservation?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
yeah,
And so the barrier there would be to,
buy themselves out of that agreement.
which would be
And the
back
longer they're,
taxes,
the longer they're in that agreement, the more expensive it gets to buy your way out.
or a developer could buy them out.
A developer could, that's why I said there's more barriers to entry there, but I wouldn't put, I'd never put anything out of the realm of responsibility. As we always say in planning, everything's for sale, it just has a price.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but the question is that, an insurmountable price?
That is the question. Anyways,
I don't think we know the answer.
yeah, we don't know the
Depends
answer to
on the
that.
buyer and the seller.
It's
Well,
up to
it's
the
the
developer, you know,
It's-
they'll
yeah.
spend 70,000 for an acre.
It depends.
You know, if they really want something,
Oh, yeah.
Well,
they'll do it.
all I'm saying is, you know, if it's back taxes, I mean, that doesn't, on agricultural properties, that does not seem like a heavy lift for a developer to pick
No,
up
but
those.
what I was referring to, it's Mr. Johnson, whatever that's worth to him.
Yeah, of
back
course.
taxes plus.
Yep.
Is really up to him.
That's just how unknowable.
Correct.
And we
Sometimes,
still don't know it right now.
yeah, sometimes referred to as like a wild card parcel, you know, cause it's hard to plan for. Anyways,
So-
go ahead, John.
Well, I was just gonna say, so, I mean, south of 69, it's hit and miss. You know, but when you get north of 69, again, you got the Drumheller area here, up there along Slate Road, up in this area between Slate and Clark.
There's some larger
You got
parcels.
some area up here that could flow to the existing sewer on Slate. Those are the kind of infill, but this would be more, in my mind, would be more residential, that area.
Oh, yeah.
You'd have an HDI or Eastbrook coming.
Yeah, south of 69, some of that is probably where you're gonna see more, potential for more commercial.
And right now, those larger parcels that there's gravity fed on Slate are zone low density residential. However, that doesn't preclude a PUD from coming in and building something like what you see here in Chandler Estates, one of the earlier build outs in Bath Township.
So part of the calculus here is, I imagine, there's been ongoing conversations about putting a highway off-ramp, on-ramp on Chandler.
That's always something, but it has been the professional opinion of the road commission, they've always been fine to say this publicly, that they don't see that happening in even the long term.
They may say, I mean,
That's what
as
they say.
a
That's what
counterpoint,
they say.
East Lansing, I think future land use or their comprehensive plan,
They push for it,
They
East
push-
Lansing
yeah.
pushes for it, that's true.
So I think there's the legislative change that would need to occur to allow two on-ramps, off-ramps to be close proximity to one another. I think there's legislation, and then I think there's some other, I mean, we all know that it was basically ready to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it's a legislative change, and then if it's determined by NDOT, that's the place for it to be.
The barriers to entry are high. The road commission thinks there's a likely chance of success, but you are correct that East Lansing pushes for it.
Correct.
And if that was to ever even come, if there was even a high degree of likelihood, it would likely change how we would view land use policy in that whole area.
I mean, just channeling Ray's first observation of thinking 20 years out.
That's what I asked Doug Steppen the same question. I think Karen, me, and Doug have had some talks about it. I was like, hey Doug, planning's long-term thinking, man. Like, you're saying there's a low likelihood. What about 50 years from now? And he was like, no. I'm just telling you what he said. I'm a messenger, that's what he said. But, yeah, there has been some interesting stuff in East Lansing's future land use plan, though, and their comprehensive plan that did, cause a lot of people in my industry, to question. Like, I know that entire sod farm, which again, we just kinda talked through that, on their future land use map is all showing pretty dense housing development.
And it's really, really wet,
Yeah, which is interesting.
and a lot of unstable soil.
So, yeah.
I do think too, if I may,
Absolutely.
I am completely with Jonathan that that area is, kind of prime for the picking and could be expandable, but I think you also have to recognize that once you get up near Hawk Hollow, people's tolerance, we saw a project of a landowner that was, people came out in droves to, kill it.
Oh, the no duplexes thing?
No, it was an office.
It was an office initially.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
An office, so I think to Miles's point about when you identify those areas and what they could be when you're picking the zoning or applying the zoning, you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah.
While the planning commission might think it's a prime spot for development and the infrastructure's kind of coming up to meet it, the residents I point at you, Ray, I'm sorry, I know you live there. I lived there formerly too, so I'm with you. But
But aren't those all
your residents
boomers that are,
may not.
we've talked about?
I never use the term
You're pretty
boomer.
brave sitting next to him saying that. But I think it's what do the residents want?
Yeah.
Or don't want
Or don't
here.
want.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that could be
Well,
another.
the other place is just to the north. There's that vacant area.
North,
There's one.
like
there's one-
north of
there's-
Drumheller,
No,
or, sorry,
north of Hawk Hollow.
oh, north of Hawk.
Between Hawk Hollow and the freeway.
Oh, the
Oh,
messenger,
There's
the
a one-
messenger.
there's a one little-
Messenger?
There's that one little, well, messenger, but next to his,
Yeah,
there's a small parcel. At one time, Kessel was, there's some rumors, at least I heard, Kessel was talking about putting
Oh, this one.
a stay-and-play place there. Yep, right in there.
right there?
Yep.
Yeah, there's a house,
There's a house there, yeah, I don't know,
Yeah.
yeah, yep.
That would be another example of probably an underutilized property in Bath Township that something may go in at some point. As these properties dry up that are ripe for development, these properties like this become more and more rare.
Yep, but then you get that development, the duplexes right there, they'll
They'll have a,
they'll come out in force.
yeah,
Anyway, put in there.
NIMBYism's a real thing.
So we have three municipalities that own property along the Chandler corridor, right? So we have DeWitt, we have Bath, and we have East Lansing. We all have a stake in the development of that. It doesn't seem beyond the realm of possibility that we all are out of alignment in what kind of development we wanna see there.
Sometimes we are out of alignment, though, that is the problem, so we have had
But
conversations.
let's talk about the opportunities,
Okay.
not the problems.
Okay, I like that. I like that. I'll be
I
quiet.
mean, why don't we open up conversations with the three municipalities and, maybe form I don't know what you call it in development, like a coalition, solicit from Sam Singh or something like that, some, state support for corridor development.
So, I mean, that is how the Township and Road Commission originally did. It was a multiple municipality ask. East Lansing was involved. And we have a good partnership with DeWitt Township. I know when we were planning out the corridor improvement projects on the sewer side, we reached out to DeWitt's, staff and we said, hey, this is coming in. Would you like us to stub in some lead lines? What do you see on your parcels in the future? And they're like, well, don't stub anything yet, but they're open. They're open to it. Now, for better or for worse, when it comes to who's responsible, it's my understanding that on the road side, for whatever reason, Bath Township handles Chandler. And on the sewer side, it's our sewer to handle. So like, even if these DeWitt parcels were to develop, they would be tapping into our sewer and become our ratepayers. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing for us, because now we got ratepayers outside of our municipality, good for us. On the East Lansing side, the leadership hasn't been as consistent. And so as we've approached them over the years, things have, opinions and tolerances for partnerships have come and gone. And opinions and tolerances for partnerships coming and going with election cycles isn't good for an infrastructure perspective, because the infrastructure develops over decades. So that's kind of been, so there is some good partnership.
I mean, are there
And
not
there's-
like development tools or, MOUs or, some sort of like,
There isn't all, I would say a lot of that is used in this area. This is a pretty complex area, because you do have a lot of players, and we've got a 425 with DeWitt. East Lansing has a 425 with DeWitt. East Lansing has a 425 with us. I think DeWitt has a 425 with East Lansing, so there's as many agreements going on here as possible.
but I mean, those are, more formal structures that would be less prone to political upheavals.
Well, 425s are nice because they have long lifetimes on them. And even with the changes in the 425, the infrastructure ownership and agreement there stays in place too. So there's a lot of that going on in that area. It's just, sometimes too, the governance between cities and townships, there can even be like some clashing there of like, townships get hesitant to work too closely with the city for fear of annexation. I'm not saying that's happened in this area, but that's been my experience in the Detroit area very much.
I mean, that's why there's 425s.
Yeah.
All right, so, I mean, going back, and I apologize
Oh, go
for
ahead.
just
You
taking
can
over
have
the meeting.
questions.
The thing that's frustrating for me with this conversation is that, the discovery of what the tools are, in the toolbox, to just overuse that phrase,
It's a good tool.
it's, like, I would love to have a list or something but it's more like, we have to discover this as we push on the conversation. And so, and I think it'd be easier for us to give you recommendations to give back to Giffords Webster if we knew what the tools that were available to us to make recommendations.
That's useful information, like what are the commonly used economic development policies that they see? I mean, I think that is a good question and something that they can research and put in the plan, and like, here's some actionable steps. These are 25 economic development policies commonly used by growing communities.
If I could, I looked at it, I'm looking at this question from you, much like the question from my board of, what are the levers we can pull to increase revenue? So I think that, this feels a lot like, we took a day with our consultant, Rob Taylor, and learned what all those mechanisms were at their fundamental base, so that we could have those discussions in our open meeting. And this feels much like that maybe the board and the planning commission needs a lesson in what are the tools available to us to do these things, so that we can talk intelligently about them and make decisions.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
But I feel like that's something that we can do.
And those are the type of action items that I hope come out of this process, and that's an actionable step. Okay, I've done a lot of asking, I mean, do you get, what are you guys' thoughts?
One thing's come up a couple times, I think you've mentioned, Miles, the landowner has something to say in how his land gets developed, which is probably true, but we're trying to plan from a township standpoint. So maybe we need to have some kind of dialogue between landowners and the township as to what they would like to see and what we'd like to see, and see if we can't come to some agreements. I mean, the Kessler property brings up, that's the big one, because it's right here. It's a big property, and everybody's got ideas on how that should be developed. Darryl probably does too, but, And there are other property owners that may have the same idea, but they have small property, I'd like to have it be like this, but that may not be what the neighbors want or the township wants, but we gotta find those things out.
Yeah, agreed, I think, I hesitate to think about specific parcels and say, like, I'm gonna craft a whole set of policies around like one project, that's never the approach I like to take, I more wanna say, like, what are your end goals, and then craft a set of policies around that, and then let the marketplace determine where that looks like. That would, I guess, that would be my preference. Or my advice, I guess. Because, again, like, landowners come and go, parcels change, they get divided, but if you have I think the buzz term in the economic development space is if you have an ecosystem that's conducive to economic development, it doesn't really matter what your parcel formation looks like, cause the ecosystem will support what comes. So it's the establishment of that ecosystem that's key, it's not so much like, well, we talked to this landowner and he's all about this project, like that's gonna come and go, the ecosystem is what's important. And I think in controlling the ecosystem is more in your power too. Cause the ecosystem, you can create policies that are broad, that support that. Where like going and working with one landowner on a specific project, like you're subject to their whim. And that puts you in a tough spot.
And letting the marketplace drive stuff too much, we may get development like the big storage place proposed by the food place.
That is true.
I don't think, there weren't, at least, I don't think too many people in the planning commission thought that was a good place for that. I was one, I thought that was a terrible place for that.
Well, agreed, and that's why the community needs to have, that's why I think our first slide, going back to it, is, well, what policies do you incentivize, and default question is, and where? They don't have to look like a uniform set of policies, it could be in this zoning district, these are our policies, in this zoning district, these are our policies.
So let's just take a concrete example. So Drumheller Road, right, that is within, an area that's the community wants to see developed, right? It seems like if we're going.
Yeah, we did make an assumption there, but let's assume that that's the case.
You said it and she said it is, so I was like.
Yeah.
Well, I know there's active board members, and an entire road committee that's interested in paving and has been fighting for that for a long time. I think it came up in the Giffel-Webster survey as, that's an emergency, vehicle, route, right?
It's definitely discussed.
And it's also among all the unpaved roads in the township, that's the one that gets identified as, if we're going to pave, let's pave that one. We have a lift station already in place there, so say we just scenarialize this and say, all right, if we're gonna, make an investment of sewer infrastructure to some area that we wanna see development over the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Perhaps the lowest cost would be that, because we have that lift station there, and maybe I'm just completely wrong there. And say we open up for development that whole corridor. Now, we've got at least one, larger parcel, that is, winding down, that could be developed. But say as part of our 20-year plan, we wanna see this as X, it could be a tech, corridor, because, we do know that there is a major, somewhere around here, there's a major, broadband, fiber line that comes through here, right? And maybe that would be a great way to tap into it, it's right off the highway. So we think about that, and we make the investment, right? And maybe it sucks because it's a $20 million investment in sewer and maybe water, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But over the next 30 years, we build that out into a major area of commerce and maybe mixed development because we planned all that out.
I think on the, so you're thinking about like the economic development, growing the pie the right way. I think that what you have to think about when you're doing that is like, okay, well, the number probably would be like 20 mil. And so it's like, okay, if that number is 20 mil, you wanna have some kind of reassurance that like you're gonna get that return on investment. I feel like, and this, we'll see what comes of the sewer master plan, and there's some of that in there, like growth areas that they project. But to me, right now, my experience, which is limited, I'm not the best planner, there are planners better than me. No, there are probably better in Clayton County. But, you know, we talked about old M78. I just see that because of access to, and there's access on, but you already have the highway, it's an MDOT road, it's already graded for trucking traffic, there's already a marketplace of industrial users there. Like if I had to pick somewhere to expand sewer, I think I would go there before I would go to Drumheller. But that's just me, I could be convinced otherwise, if data came available or we had a user on the line, like.
So what you're missing out in developing that is the larger vision that the community has identified about building an identity in the Bath, probably the Webster corridor is really what's, you know, quote, downtown Bath would likely be, right?
Yeah, I could be convinced otherwise, but there were, I would just,
He's onto something.
yeah, you would just have to look at it, but you're thinking about it the right way. In this conversation tonight, I don't wanna get into like, yeah, we need to dial in on this parcel, but I think policies like that and focusing on areas like that is the way to plan for the future. Like, you're 100% right.
Hey,
But it-
Miles,
It gives us I'm so sorry.
that's all right, go ahead.
Please, no, you go.
I was
You're-
just
you're
gonna
a planning
say,
commission member.
yeah, I was just gonna say Miles hasn't seen Field of Dreams.
Well, I think the other thing with M78 and Drumheller Road, the difference is, if we develop M78 out there, who's gonna look at that as being part of Bath Township? Most of the world doesn't think that's part of Bath Township out there.
Agreed.
Drumheller Road would be.
Yeah.
So I think that's an advantage there.
Well, and the future development that draws off of that development or
Yeah, the
incentivized by, it goes south,
The
right?
spin-off
Yeah.
development was
Yeah.
always.
And that's not what we want in our long-term
Yeah,
planning.
and spin-off development is something that people in the economic development space talk about a lot, and spin-off development's a hard one to sell to policymakers, cause it's hard to calculate like the impact of spin-off development. It is very real though,
It's risky though, right? You don't know.
you don't know, it's like, it's one of those like things in the ether, I mean, that's always like the classic example of like spin-off developments and justifying it to the public is sports stadiums. So like the case that was made in the city of Detroit for Little Caesars, like, we have to do this, guys, because the spin-off is gonna be crazy. So like, of course, this pencils out to use public dollars to invest in this thing, because just think about the economic impact of every single Red Wings game that's gonna happen here. If we let this go to Royal Oak, we're doomed. But spin-off is hard to calculate. It's hard to show like on a spreadsheet the spin-off benefit of doing an investment.
And it doesn't always work.
It's hard to calculate if it works or doesn't, but
It has a hell of a lot better, probability of success than doing nothing.
oh, yeah, no, I mean, I agree.
So I would agree, Jason, with you. If we were able to come up, Chandler Road further, to Drumheller and kind of meet, with the sewer, potentially water, fiber, I think you could get some mixed use. And I think it would be a good area to target, instead of throwing a dart at the map and trying to just figure out what that looks like. You do have a lot of residential through Drumheller. I'm not as familiar with Fetch as, our planner is, but, I do think that it has probably the most developable,
Well, and there's two other benefits there. One, it reduces, the barrier for Hawk Hollow folks to enter into the Bath quote, downtown Webster corridor area. The other is, I didn't mention like a tech corridor randomly. You know, I think there's some opportunities there, and I think if we look at, you know, what's the business right across the street that does the,
We got a tech startup,
Yeah,
BSNA.
yeah, BSNA.
Yeah,
I
don't
mean,
sleep on Bath.
you know, and they capture what, 90% of the market for what they do? I mean,
Everybody's gotta use them, no
Yeah.
choice. Every municipality, yeah, cities too.
And I believe we do have a major, fiber pipeline going through that area.
But then does that also bring, you know, does it, much to Doug Steffen's,
Dismay.
dismay, you know, does it
Traffic.
mark the way for that, on-ramp to become a reality? And it kind of the whole thing sets up, even if it doesn't, it's
Yeah.
still Chandler into.
It's a
East
consideration.
I will cry for Doug Steffen and his barrier identification for that. I mean, I'm sure he has legitimate reasons. I mean, I've heard many times over that, you know, Chandler Road is sitting on a bog, right? And so,
The state would have to bring money to the table.
Yeah.
but the state already brought money to the table, right?
Not enough to solve that
Well,
problem.
Not enough to solve that problem.
but if we view that as the first investment, right? And
No,
then
for
we
sure.
develop a solid plan that shows that this not only develops our community, but East Lansing and DeWitt.
You're selling me on this area. I mean, I like everything you're saying. I don't think there's one thing wrong with it.
I mean, I'm gonna have to develop an equalization basin, you know, probably right outside here and release it at off-peak times to get over to DeWitt. But
Yeah.
I do think it makes sense to me from an infrastructure perspective. I don't know what you thought.
From the infrastructure perspective, that Drumheller corridor would be ideal as
I know you
a
don't
tech or
like that,
commercial
but.
office.
It's not about what I like.
Especially if you had the Chandler ramp, that's ideal.
Well, I think if you had the Chandler ramp, like all bets are
But
off.
even without the ramp, you still have a lot of potential there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of open area right now. There's housing, but there is a substantial amount that a developer came in, they could buy those up, tear them down, put up a new facility, whatever it is, tech, office. So, I mean, that would be a great spot for it.
Anything but hotels.
Anything but hotels, and we're not paying enough hotels. I think the hotels getting combined in how it was worded in the surveys, it said hotel/motel. And I think people in Bath, particularly with the motel on Saginaw, maybe they realize that's not Bath or not, but they're just like, no to that.
Cause I thought originally at one point in time, Eagle Eye was going to put a hotel on the golf course at one point in time, I thought.
One, and those hotels, I think,
Didn't they discuss that
I thought there was discussion of that.
well, if you look at,
when they first started building?
if you look at Eastwood Town Center, I mean, their hotel had really helped with some of their infill of Eastwood Town Center. Lansing Township has just gotta be killing it these days. I don't know what their balance sheet looks like, but that place continues
Terrible.
to grow. Is it terrible?
Yes.
Because they had to pay off.
Yeah.
Yeah, alright, well, I guess that Dave and Buster's isn't doing it.
No, they're not.
It will be.
The little concern I would have, if you're gonna do anything to Drumheller, would be you're connecting two Class A roads with a road.
Oh, it's gotta be a Class A road.
And it's gotta be a Class A road, I would say, or
No
you
question.
don't waste your money on it. And I was really shocked that the road commission didn't make Slagle do something with Chandler Road, considering the damage that
Yeah,
all
totally.
those trucks did to that piece there by the golf courses. I would have made them put a bond on that myself and said, no, you're gonna rebuild it when you get done with your truck traffic.
Well, too bad we don't have like a township road committee that could have provided some guidance.
That was suggested.
Are you
Going
on
back,
that committee?
Yes, I
Okay.
was, yes. That was suggested.
Yeah, I'm trying to rein
But
in.
the road
Going-
commission
Going
has-
back to going back to economic development, I mean, what are the thought, we've dialed in on, there are strategic areas that need to be planned for. That's
Oh, yeah, I
the
think so.
couple word synopsis of that conversation. What are any other thoughts? Actionable information I can give back to the consultants that people are thinking about tonight.
I guess one concern personally, and this is a personal thing, is how much of other people's money do you wanna put into a development project that may or may not return an investment?
That's always a risk.
And I think that's always a question that all of us have to examine, because there becomes a point where the taxpayers are not willing to spend any more of their tax money to subsidize a development. And I've seen this in other communities, and it's got mixed results.
Well, I think from the policy perspective, what you would do to avoid, to mitigate your fears there is you would have to build in, like, to communicate, one, to the business community what your objectives are, and then two, to set standards for yourself, so you're looking at things objectively, would be like, okay, well, if the developer would like to bring money to the table to build out the sewer, the extra 2,000 feet to get to you, here's the only way we're gonna consider something like that. It's gotta be 200 jobs if it's commercial, you know, something like that, objective standards, or it's gotta be, residential units at a density of this level and a price point of this price point. And if you build in those, then you indicate to the business community, one, what you're even willing to consider, so then I would like that, cause now I'm not wasting my time. And then two, it sets the board up for like, hey, we told you what we're willing to do, you're coming now, so is it 200 jobs or not?
So I do think there should be a discussion with the board. John and I had this conversation recently, because I think where, you know, sitting here and hearing Mr. Sudbury say that, you know, they weren't interested, you, I'm sorry, I don't know if it was just you or the entire planning commission wasn't interested in storage next door. I don't think that same belief is held by the board. So I do think that there's, you know, some room for you all to get on the same page with what it is you.
Well, they're wrong, they can come to our side.
I think the thing is with that is, what do you want the township to look like?
Correct.
Now or in 20 years? Do you want a big storage facility there when you come off the freeway and it gets
I think
a
there were board
great?
members that were A-okay with that storage unit.
I disagree with
But look how that played out. Like, the Cube Squared came and they lobbied us, and where are they now?
I mean,
They left.
you're correct.
So, but I mean, the Cube Smart, we talked about spin-off development, right? And I think that was one of our fears, is that, you know, that type of development would not spin off additional commercial development that was what was wanted by our residents. And so that, and, you know, the long-term, you know, what happens if it goes out of business, how can it be rehabilitated?
Well, I think Karen's point still stands though, like I'm trying to pull it back from like these micro examples of what we've talked about. But like, I think your point still stands of conversations about alignment will always be a good idea. And I think that's all you're posing here. Is there any opposition to that?
No. I did wanna address in terms of funding, I mean, it seems like municipalities sometimes do a sleight of hand to get things funded, through strategy. And so say we go for a fire and police and fire millage, an expansion of that. But we build into that, the paving of Drumheller as a public safety feature, right? So we're building that off of the goodwill that the community has around public safety. It has a legitimate purpose of creating a paved route for safety, fire trucks and the police. Taxpayers gladly pay it because it's a safety feature. And then we've got one step of that plan built out, right? Which frees us to then, you know, think of what is our next step in the next 5 years, which would be, you know, maybe the sewer build out or water.
I think if you get a millage, a dedicated millage for police and fire, and you use it to rebuild Drumheller Road, you're gonna have a significant problem.
I think that I get the gist of what he's saying. I think if you put out the millage with the intent of letting people know, like, along with this, we're going to do this other thing.
Yeah, as long as you're transparent about it.
Yeah,
You'd have to be really transparent about it, though, yes.
but potentially two separate pots of money. But I think
Yes.
that the goal is to say, we're doing the thing and let it,
You just allocate like 0.5 mils or, you know, whatever it is to the road portion of the safety element. And you can be transparent about
or
it.
you even take that $500,000 that we are pouring into public safety, and
And-
you fund public safety. you
Now
take
you
that
freed up money
and
for
do
Yeah.
something
roads.
else with it.
Yeah.
So that's what
Right,
I'm
you could
saying,
do
it's
that.
two pots of money, but the goal is to do the thing.
And to your point, I think this is where the board's at right now. I mean, you guys are like, all options are on the table at this point. You're not like, oh, well, we're not considering that, that would just be uncalled for. You're like, all options are on the table. And I think that's a healthy place to be in, because that means that you're open to things. Is there any other, we're about a little after 8 now. Is there any other economic development thoughts?
I don't,
Miles, as the best planner in Clinton.
I'm not, I hate this title, by the way. I don't
You
like,
clearly are not interested in, or don't think the Drumheller development is advisable.
no, I don't, no, I did not say that. I can be persuaded, and there's been a lot that has been brought up tonight that is good.
What hesitations were lingering from your perspective?
Oh, it's that return on investment risk. I wanna know, I want a proven track record. I guess on old MSD, I feel like I've seen development be interested in that area where I haven't seen that with Drumheller yet. But seeing's believing, but we know that Mr. Slagle is getting towards the end. He's entertained a lot of options. One thing they even threw out there, which was kinda interesting, I think I talked to Karen about this, was like an indoor sports, private soccer, pickleball courts. I mean, that's huge in this area right now. I think that would do well, but it'd bring a lot of traffic in that area, and it would also probably spike housing demand, because if there is a private pickleball court and some private pickleball leagues, I think you'll have people being like, how can I build my house near that? So yeah, like things can change immediately. One developer could come in and change the whole thing, so I would never say never to anything. But my hesitation is proven return on investment.
yeah.
The problem too, like from the public side, it's so much easier to be on the private side. Cause when it's the private side, it's just like you and a bunch of other people's money in a pot. And if you fail, it's like, whatever, we failed, we'll do a class 7 bankruptcy, set up another LLC and try next time. But when it's the public money, it's the people's dollars, and so the stakes are like way higher, and you wanna be way less risk averse, and, I know me, and I'm sure everyone here in Bath Township, we think about it constantly. It's just totally different, it changes your whole calculus, it sucks.
Well, it really does, because if you think about selling bonds for a project, you're gonna have to pay interest on the bonds. So the interest has gotta come from somewhere, so it's either gotta come from your existing tax base, or you gotta hinge on the fact that it's gonna return on your investment on the bonds.
All right, well, you know what, I'm gonna go back to what we started with, and, the failings of not making decisions 30 years ago
is true.
What's biting us in the ass today, right?
Right.
And so, what we've heard loud and clear in the data that we've collected from our own community, both in listening sessions, the survey, and all the surveys we've done over the past, God knows how many years, is the same thing. People want development. They want a particular type of development. And so, the risk of being too conservative is that we continue to disappoint or not have a community that we all envision and want. And so, are we gonna make some risks? Yeah, we have to make some risks. is it in the best interest of our community, even though there's risk and the return on investment might have some, a 30%, viability over 20 years? I mean.
Yeah, no, you are right, like, we've talked about this too. Inaction is its own choice. By doing nothing, you're choosing, and that is you can do something, you can do this, you can do that. By doing nothing, you're also making a choice. Your analysis is correct, like, there has been a choice sometimes, and it's been difficult for the board members, because honestly, your incentive structure to change things when you're elected official is almost none. When you do nothing, no one gets mad at you. When you do something, people get mad at you.
Always gonna be somebody mad.
But this board's been willing to do things, I mean, we are spending an incredible amount of money on the Chandler Road Corridor right now. We spent a decent amount of money on the Webster Road Corridor. We've got more sidewalk money coming up for projects in 27 and 28, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Several $100,000 to go into the Park Lake Corridor. So things are happening, but you are right, like, planning and risk has to get taken. But noted, I'll translate the sentiment to the consultants. All right.
Can I make a comment to Jason, I'm being the oldest dinosaur here on the planning commission by far. I was on the planning commission when Walmart came to us, and they wanted to put a Walmart superstore at Upton and the old Saginaw Highway. And they wanted us to extend the water and the sewer, and they wanted a 12-year tax abatement. And we told them where to go, and
Pound sand, right?
yeah. Was that a bad decision?
Oh, yeah, God, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I mean, we could've had a Walmart superstore.
And all the spin-off development, right?
Yeah, if there was any.
Oh, there would be.
Oh, I don't know, did you look at the one in St. John's, this Walmart superstore, how much spin-off development is there?
Not much.
Not
There's
much.
an Applebee's there.
Yeah, you're right, there is.
There's a Farm and Home.
2 for $20.
There's a Cube Smart.
No, the Farm and Home is up in
It's
the
there.
existing building that was there before.
So John, that kinda goes back to what Kate said at some point in the meeting, which is like, you have to be selective though too. You can't just come at the first thing that comes at you. But, I think two things can be true at once. You have to make decisions, but you can't just give in, Karen, how many developers come to us with some crazy ask?
Oh, I'm sure.
If every municipality gave in to every crazy ask, I mean, we'd be done.
You'd be bankrupt, yep.
So, you gotta weigh out both, and I think a lot of times, like, the devil's in the details, like, there's no way around it. It's a total, it depends every time. And we'll run it, I mean, by the township engineer and everyone else, and we'll be like, does this math out? And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
For the record, I think what you do have here is the most humble planner in Clinton.
Okay, has anybody got any final comments they wanna share?
Yeah, I'm ready to go get some Culvers.
We gotta eat, what else is on the agenda?
I move to close the public.
And I'll second closing the public.
Okay. So we've closed the public meeting?
Oh, you gotta vote on it.
Oh, we gotta vote on it, yeah, you're right, Mark. Yeah. Those in favor of closing the public meeting, say aye.
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 Just
We,
comment.
All right, report
go ahead, report from
real
the planner.
quick, just trying to roll it, okay. Yeah, thanks for everyone coming tonight. The only thing I wanted to, turn over to is our new planning intern, Madison. Madison, do you wanna say some stuff about you and who you are and introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Madison Ingram. I started working here like 3 weeks ago. Right? Yeah. So first meeting for me, yay. I recently graduated from U of M in May. Yeah, go blue. But yeah, I'm super happy to be here. I've learned so much in my 3 weeks under the best
No.
planner. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. It's really interesting to see you guys all talk and stuff, and I think some great ideas have been brought up. I really am interested in just learning more about local government in general too, so that's me. I'm Madison. And I'm from Bath, Michigan, yes.
Oh.
Not born, but I moved here when I was 1, so almost my whole life.
Close.
Yeah.
You don't quite cut it. I'm just kidding.
Well, welcome. You're gonna have a fabulous experience. Miles has an amazing track record.
I've
for
heard.
His mentorship and, placing, his interns in
Good
great
places.
jobs.
Yeah, everyone's gotten a job in planning, but I don't know if it is Madison's ultimate goal to be a planner.
No, I want to go to law school, but
Oh, wow.
that's a hope.
Maybe there's a planner in you.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, and the pipeline from planner to municipal law is a very real thing, so maybe we'll get you in municipal law.
Yep,
Open a spot for me at Bath Township.
Yeah, it should be working for Fahey Schultz one day.
yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of law that goes into planning.
Oh, yeah, we keep those guys busy.
I've seen.
Yep,
Okay, that's it from us.
that's it.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Any board of commissioners, comments?
Nothing for me.
Well,
Nothing? No?
okay.
No? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then.
What about board member comments?
Yeah.
Oh, board member comments?
That's what he was just doing. You said
I
nothing.
just-
No, he was like, I'll entertain a
He
motion
ran
for.
right by.
We don't,
I want to thank the audience members for your patience, in coming out here and sharing your expertise. I really appreciate it. There's clearly a massive amount of learning and understanding that goes into the work that you do, and, I appreciate you sharing what you've been able to share.
thank you. Anything else? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Wait, I got one more thing.
Oh, do you? Oh, go ahead.
Speaking of, Clyce Road is a disaster. Can you guys fix it?
I appreciate that one. I've driven Clyce Road many times.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Support.
Those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion's, meeting's adjourned.